Presidential race is the big ticket in the June 7th primary here in California, but there's a Senate race on the ballot as well.
California Attorney General Kamala Harris is leading the field in a new statewide poll this week, but with 34 candidates in the running, she still has plenty of competition. KCAL9 political reporter Bryan joins us now with a look at Kamala Harris, her achievements, and what her critics are saying about the leader in the race.
We've got it all covered here tonight, let me tell you. And with 34 candidates, this is like a real pack, running. And almost a third of the likely voters are still undecided 12 days before this election. Yeah. Kamala Harris is leading the Senate race, but still has the support of only 27% of likely voters in this very crowded field. And she leads the field not only in the polls, but in campaign fundraising and endorsements. But in a year when those factors are no longer a guarantee to winning. California Attorney General Kamala Harris got the rock star treatment at a recent campaign event in Commerce. She is, after all, not only leading the polls in the race for Barbara Boxer's Senate seat, but the darling of Democrats with a national following. President Obama complimented her looks and then apologized, and she was rumored to be a candidate for appointment to the Supreme Court for a while before she shot that down. It has been a meteoric rise with plenty of attention from national newspapers like the New York Times. And some of her opponents complained she was like the anointed candidate in this Senate race. Now, in her second term as state attorney general, Harris started her political career in 2003 when she ran for and won the job of San Francisco district attorney.
I was elected as the first woman of color ever in the state of California to be elected district attorney of any county.
But as the LA Times wrote in 2014, there's a perception that Harris is reluctant to stake out positions on controversial issues, which I asked her about in a recent interview. How do you reconcile that with bold leadership, which kind of implies, you're out there first? You're leading the way.
I think what people who have worked with me for a long time say, I know what they say, is she fearless? Yes. Is she reckless? No.
Fearless. That's what Elizabeth Warren said about Kamala Harris.
In fact, that word, fearless, headlines a Harris campaign TV ad, which points to some of her success stories.
Took on big oil companies violating our hazardous waste laws, and Kamala Harris sued the big banks and won $20 billion for California homeowners.
Cal State LA professor emeritus Jaime Regalado says Harris isn't conducting a bold campaign so far, not surprising for a candidate who's sitting on a double-digit lead.
To play it safe, not being bold on issues that you're going to be faced with as a senator, it means that Kamala really hasn't jumped out of the box that she began the campaign in. But she's on the right side of where most voters are. She's just not doing a great job about selling them. I don't think she feels she has to at this point.
Harris certainly has her critics. The state auditor has twice reported that under Harris, the state system for keeping guns out of the hands of those with mental health problems and others who are dangerous is woefully flawed and inadequate. She says she inherited the problem, but 6 years later, she tacitly acknowledges it's still not completely fixed.
It was a flawed system to begin with, and I agree with that. And it needed to be fixed. It requires steps, and those steps are being taken, and we have seen great improvements.
As State Attorney General, Harris has been directly involved with environmental and immigration issues, but not so much with foreign policy, international terrorism, and the national economy. Issues one of her opponents, Congresswoman Loretta Sanchez, says she deals with every day. To which Harris had this response without naming Sanchez.
I've also seen the impact of what they do in Washington, D.C. for the betterment and for the worse of our state and our cities and counties. It's not just about grand gestures. It's about providing people with a sense of vision about what our country can be.
Michael Brown, earlier this year, even some civil rights activists and members of the state legislature called on Harris to take action in police shooting cases where there are racial issues. Harris opposed a bill that would have required the Attorney General's office to independently investigate fatal police shootings. Do you feel that some local police cases should be given to a different authority, perhaps the Attorney General, a more neutral authority than a local police department, but maybe not all of them?
There's no question that when there's been misconduct, when there has been betrayal of trust or conflict of interest, then yes, it should go to a neutral authority. There's no question about that.
And should it be the Attorney General in some cases?
Yes. in those cases where that exists, yes.
Last year, Harris was the target of reports by the National Journal and Orange County Register, which documented what they called her lavish spending from her campaign fund accounts on luxurious hotels, luxury car services, and first-class airfare. The Hill, an online government news site, quoted former aides as saying she treats the campaign fund like a personal checking account to fund a life of luxury. Should it raise questions in the public mind about, if you're a senator, how you would look at money spending, which is always an issue in Washington?
There were issues that we needed to address early in my campaign around correcting course, which we did, and I'm very proud of the work we did in that regard.
So this was your campaign manager, I believe, who was replaced, right?
There was a lot of restructuring that we did, and it needed to be done.
Okay.
Yeah.
So problem solves?
I believe so,
Yeah.
yes.
In fact, by last December, the National Journal reported Harris's campaign was already on its second campaign manager and third finance director. By the time we got to the issue of some consumer groups that charge her office was in a conflict of interest situation as part of its investigation into the San Onofre nuclear plant closure expenses and the 2010 San Bruno gas explosion and alleged collusion between the big utilities and the Public Utilities Commission, Harris kept her answer short, if not sweet. Do they have a point?
Absolutely not. No.
But it does, from what they say, it seems like maybe it could be a conflict of interest. You're saying it's not?
Absolutely not. Correct. No.
No validity?
No, none whatsoever.
Well, one thing to remember, California has a top two primary system, so the two top finishers will get a ticket into the November runoff no matter what party they're in. Many analysts believe Harris's runoff opponent will be Orange County Congresswoman Loretta Sanchez. Tomorrow night, we'll report on her Senate campaign, so more to come.
Yeah, Dave, you mentioned those top two vote getters. It looks like they're going to be Democratic at this point in time. So what about the Republican candidates?
You know, they were thinking early on that there'd be a huge Republican turnout because it looked like Trump and Cruz would still be. No, that kind of fell through. Now it's looking the other way. The Democrats now will get the big turnout. That's why, you know, this could be a top two with Democrats only. There are three leading Republican candidates who are included in the two primary campaign debates, but the polls show the three top GOP candidates are all in the single digits now, and they're knocking out each other by dividing up the Republican votes into three pieces. Remember, only slightly more than a quarter of registered California voters are Republicans now, that is. So when you split that into thirds, it's less than 10% per candidate, and there are 29 other candidates outside the top five who are taking some votes too. So it is a very difficult formula for a Republican to get into the runoff this time. Next week, we'll profile the three leading Republican candidates. Back to you guys.
Yeah, Dave.